Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Brief by Spectrum Labs. I'm your host, Meredith Reed. I'm here today with Vinay Hiremath, co-founder and head of engineering at Loom, a video creation and sharing platform. Loom empowers people around the world to create quick videos of their screen, of themselves, or both. To date, over 1.5 million users across more than 50,000 companies have recorded and shared a Loom video with a coworker or client. Loom is designed to help you virtually communicate in the most effective and human way possible. As co-founder and head of engineering at Loom, Vinay oversees the platform's architecture and infrastructure and directs growth, development, management, and output for the team. Alongside his fellow Loom co-founder, Vinay also leads the strategic, technical, and product direction of the company. Vinay, welcome to The Brief.
Thanks for having me on, Meredith. Appreciate it. I also love the intro. I think maybe that was I forgot if I supplied it or if that was grabbed from my Crunchbase, which I ended up updating like 2 years ago, and I just had like a blurb of like all of the things that I did at the company. I just think it's funny like to hear it out loud.
I know, I totally know what you're saying because I'm like, where is my profile? Like, where are all the websites where I have something posted that I don't even know about? So it's actually from your LinkedIn, FYI.
Oh, it is. Okay, got it. I'm gonna pare it down and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just do like this one thing. Yeah.
All right, so just scratch everything I just said, but whatever. We'll let you explain what you do. So, just to get started, for people out there who haven't heard of Loom, and it's Loom, by the way, could you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to create Loom?
Sure, yeah. I think that I'll talk about what inspired, because Loom came about from quite a bit of serendipity. I mean, when me and my co-founders ended up starting the company, our beginnings were pretty humble. We just wanted to something that was obviously moderately successful. We wanted some financial upside, but we also wanted to create a culture that people really loved coming into work for, where they felt like leadership had a pretty strong direction, clear vision, and also leadership like care the employees. And that was really where we started. And some of our past experiences between me and my co-founders drove us to having that as our main source of inspiration. When we did throughout user testing space, when we started, we eventually landed on video recording. And really where it started is we ended up having a little JavaScript snippet, a little code snippet that you put in your browser that allowed someone to run these like video guided user interviews with their actual users. So they'd have a series of questions and prompts, and the user could inline install the Chrome extension and record a video, and it would drop into the dashboard for the website owner. So that's where we kind of started, and then eventually we ended up decoupling the Chrome extension because we realized that fast video communication might be something that is generally exciting and useful. But really, when we did that, we did it we did it partly because of the hypotheses that we had built up for the first 6-7 months, iterating and user testing. But also we did it because we were hoping that would actually fuel growth for the user testing platform, which wasn't doing that well at the time. What ended up happening is Loom really ended up taking on a life of its own. There were several light bulb moments where we realized, wow, there's actually a few pretty serious market trends that are adding tailwind to our growth. And we realized that this was going to become the company. And what really inspires me now and keeps me motivated to continue to drive really hard to provide this tool to the workplace is that we're working fundamentally problem that people communicate more effectively and get ahead. And I think helping people get ahead is like one of the most human things you can do, especially in a world where like we're massively distributing as well. People aren't all working next to each other anymore. Some people are working in different time zones, and this is like the reality of the new world that we work in. And Loom being able to help people do their job more effectively is inspiring to me. Loom helping people communicate more effectively is inspiring.
Agreed. And I have to say, I actually discovered Loom totally organically through a project I was working on. Somebody sent me a Loom video. I was kind of like, what is this? And, I think initially I was like, oh God, another video sharing platform. But I have to say, and I am not being paid to say this, once I used it, now I use it all the time because anytime I want to send someone a quick explanation, without, or even a detailed explanation, but without getting on a full phone call and also to screen share and walk someone through something, it's so incredibly useful. And I feel like it's something I didn't know I was missing that now I use all the time. So basically, maybe I already explained this through what I just said, but for people out there who are wondering what sets Loom apart from all these other video sharing platforms, what would you say?
Sure, yeah. I think that there's a few different things, but the main one is that the video is just instantly ready to share. That's definitely a main value prop of our platform, is that as soon as you're done recording the video, like it's already been processed, it's already been uploaded. If you've ever tried to create like a QuickTime, or if you're on Windows, maybe use the Windows recorder, and then you uploaded that to YouTube or Wistia or somewhere else, and then you had to wait for it to process, and then you sent the video. Like with Loom, that entire process is completely streamlined, and as soon as you're done recording, it's just ready to share. That's definitely a massive unlock for folks in the way that they think about video as a file format even. It really unlocks your ability to be more expressive. So the other part of this is that in your day-to-day communication, you start to ask yourself, when you use Loom more and more and you see other people in your workplace using Loom, how else can I use video to get my job done much more effectively and efficiently? Video is then a way to reduce back and forth and ambiguity around communication, where a lot of times you have people going back and forth on small details. When you're able to see it and hear someone's tone in the way that they're explaining something, you get a lot more context into what's being delivered. And so the expressive component of it as well, like that's one of the reasons why Loom ends up growing so fast organically, is because people end up seeing, oh, I can actually use it for my job in these ways. And those use cases are different across different personas. It's also one of the challenges of being a horizontal use case product, is that when you are horizontal in use case, you become an onboarding and education company. And so like once you have this superpower, so to speak, it's like, okay, well, how can I actually tangibly use it in order to make my job better and more efficient and easier? And I am happy to hear that you use Loom regularly and that you stumbled across it organically, because all of our growth up until now has been organic word of mouth. We haven't done any paid ads or any paid marketing.
That's really incredible. Wow. And so going off of that, we were talking a little bit before the call about, now especially as of today, we're living in this world with COVID-19 and people are having to work from home, work more remotely. Do you feel like your platform, having Loom on hand, is going to be helpful to people who are working remotely for the first time?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's gonna be pivotal for a lot of people. Actually, when a lot of the COVID stuff started happening, we have an early investor um, who ended up moving his family to China a few months ago, and he ended up being part of the quarantine process where his family ended up having to stay in their apartment, including his kids who had to work from home, and the school districts were scrambling to figure out, like, what the hell do we do? Like, how do we get what are the processes? What are the tools we need to use? And during that period, it was really unhealthy for his family. So he very recently moved him back to California. And he gave me a call, and he gave me and Joe a call, my co-founder, and he was like, look, like, the this is going to be a problem in the US. It's going to be a problem everywhere. Like, you can't outrun this. But Loom has a disproportionate ability to have impact on the way we do remote school and remote teaching, and it has a disproportionate impact on the way we do remote work. And so with with the COVID stuff, for sure, like I think Loom can help, but the biggest thing that we really want to help set people up for success for is for groups and organizations, whether it's schools or companies that are just frantically trying to figure out how to get all of their processes to work in this new way of collaboration. We want to be there for all of them. And so we're going to be rolling out communication very, very soon, sometime this week, around what we're going to do on our end in order to help set up the world for success during this period. Because yes, we're seeing increased usage on our platform, but I was you about this right before this call. Like it's not like I see that and I'm like, oh sweet, like good for business. I see it and it's like heartbreaking, because there are people who I personally know who have been affected by this and people are dying. And so for us, like we're really just trying to scramble right now to help as much as we can and make sure that people are set up for success, because Loom does allow you to do things asynchronously. It allows you to get your message across more efficiently. But at the same time, we know that people are just scrambling to get stuff working, and we want to be there for them.
I think that's amazing. And I have noticed that a couple other platforms I use are taking the initiative to, for example, extend their freemium model so you can use their platform for free longer, stuff like that, for people who have been affected by COVID-19. So I think that's really great, and we'll stay tuned for those announcements. So as you know, Spectrum Labs, we work with trust and safety AI. So just to take the conversation in that direction, I know some of this stuff is confidential, but could you give us a little bit more information about the types of trust and safety issues that you deal with at Loom or in your industry in general?
Totally, yeah. I mean, because Loom is used across so many different personas, including executives and security teams, Loom is essentially, it's a tool that allows you to upload HD information at the speed of your internet connection. So trust and safety is like, for a company like ours, it is like it's the difference between success and failure. And so, for instance, our terms of service and our privacy policy states that Loom doesn't own your content. Like, even though it's on our platform, we don't actually own it. We'll never resell it. We'll never extract any of the media and put it on third-party ad platforms. We'll never do that, and we'll always price on we'll always charge, because honestly, the kind of information that's being shared on Loom is confidential, and it's super security it's super security sensitive. I mean, there's personal information being recorded into our platform, sometimes accidentally too, which is another vector that we're really going to have to dive into. And so the precautions we take internally from a process standpoint are pretty stringent. And they're stringent because it's really important that people trust that their content is safe and that it's theirs, even though it's being recorded with Loom. And that's also why I think it's important that Loom is seen not as like a platform that's going to try to grab all of your information and sell it, but a tool and a utility and something that you can trust. There are people, to give you like an idea of like span of influence. I mean, we're used across 52,000 plus companies across basically every country in the world except Antarctica. And we're and we're in a place where there are companies in the Fortune 500, and there are companies, there are certain government institutions and presidential candidates who have used Loom for their campaigns. Like there is information that has a real negative impact if it's leaked to the wrong people. There is a massive cultural impact to some of the information that's recorded on our platform. So yeah, like there's a reason why we have a privacy for humans page, and then our legalese privacy policy. Like the privacy for humans page that I wrote is up to legal scrutiny. So it's actually not just a lip service doc. If you go to /privacy, loom.com/privacy, we're very forthcoming about where your data is going, exactly how you can scrub it from any of these systems. And we also have things like our deletes are final. Like there is nowhere where it's backed up that anybody can get them. And I also think there's like a larger security narrative where as we go to market with our teams and enterprise product, which is happening this summer, we are we're going to have to, in some ways, push the industry towards the concept of electronic key management being the default for enterprises, where even if we were asked to disclose some information for another company, all of the information within our platform is it's scrambled, it's encrypted, so we couldn't even do anything about it if we wanted to. So yeah, I mean, like, security, privacy, and the policy around it is like one of the most, if not the most important thing for Loom right now.
Yeah, I mean that's very good to hear, and I could definitely see that. I think as, you know, a normal, let's say, user of this type of technology where I'm not the one designing it, and yeah, I understand technology, but I think for a lot of people that aren't working in that sector, there is kind of this fear of the unknown. And, you know, short of, even if I read all these terms and conditions, I may not understand them. And I don't always know if something I'm downloading on my computer is going to be following me around the internet. Is it, you know, how safe is it? So I guess my question for you is, do you have any insight or recommendations on how people can stay safe when they're using maybe not even, let's say, Loom or other video and screen sharing technology?
Yeah, totally. That is a great question. I think there are a number of tactical ways. But honestly, one of the most important things, like, I'm a big believer in the fact that at the end of the day, if the content is hosted on the company servers, if it's not you who controls the code, if it's not you who controls, like, the mechanism at which you're creating this content, actions speak louder than words. And so really look at the way that the company reacts to people online saying, hey, like, your privacy policy says this or says that. Like, there's a public thread that I've had with a COO of another German company where she was telling me, hey, like, I'd love to use Loom, but our CTO found this clause in your privacy policy, and, like, it's really concerning. And I publicly went back to our lawyers and had our terms of service changed in a public forum, and I created a Loom describing the changes, the before and after, and sent it back to her publicly. I think that if you find that the company that you're, or the tool that you're using, the company that's created that tool, isn't doing things like this, they're not allowing you to, like, export content out of the platform, like there is no download button, for instance, or that it's, like, behind a paywall, I think that speaks volumes, right? Like, the actions speak so much louder than any tactical information about, like, how to keep safe. I would say that when it comes to that, that's the first and foremost thing, because if you're using a platform that, you know, stores and like, transforms that information, like, are trusting the company that runs that platform. So that is, like, the number one thing. And I don't think it's I know that can be perceived as I want tactical information, but that is, like, the best information that I give, like, even my family who's not very technically savvy. The second thing I'd say is that, you know, if you are using video creation and sharing platforms, make sure they're compliant by standards that demand user respected privacy. For us, like, I think GDPR is one of those standards, and there is quite a bit of looseness when it comes to the enforcement of GDPR. So also looking at, okay, well, you know, how are they being evaluated? Like, for us, we used a third-party firm to come up with, like, our records of processing activities. And if you are someone who really wants to stay safe, you unfortunately have to dive into a little bit of the understanding of what these things mean for you. There is no way for you to be safe if you don't educate yourself a little bit on this front. And so the more that you can do, the better. But I think that for me, those are kind of two things. Look at the company's actions, and then also get acquainted with some sort of policy and compliance that demands the respect of a user's ownership over their data. Those would be the biggest things, especially for something like video. Like I said before, we're storing a bunch of sensitive information. So these are the 2 points I can make, even outside of, you know, don't back up your data on, like, these certain providers. Like, I'm not going to, like, name names or, you know, make any shots fired. I think the more tangible advice that's more true across any company that exists now or might exist in the future is just look at their actions, look at how they respond.
Thank you for saying all of that. And I really respect the way that you handled that. Just because of the nature of the job I'm in and producing this podcast, a lot of times now I am looking into the companies behind these startups and how accessible they are and how many layers there are to just get to a real person. And that has kind of enlightened me to the fact that, not all of these companies are on the same playing field as far as how transparent they're willing to be with their users and how much communication they actually want to have with their users.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge that it's really hard to do it. Like it's not even necessarily that, the road to hell is like paved with great intentions. It's like it's not necessarily that um, all these companies don't want to be transparent. I think that when money gets involved and when you scale up, like if you don't set the proper foundation for your culture and your vision and what people really care about, um, that all gets lost as you scale. And scale has a tendency to screw up everything. And so it might not necessarily be that the companies, like, just to be fair to other companies, it's not necessarily that they don't want to be transparent. It might be that being transparent in this case could like have a tangible and material negative effect on other people too, that they currently surface. And there are a bunch of different cases where that might be the case. For Loom, we've taken a pretty, I would say, more radical transparency around like public information on how we're handling your data. But again, like it's easy for us, and I don't want to, peg other companies. It's easy for us because we pretty much have to do that. Like if you don't trust Loom to care for your data and store it in a safe way and not like sell it to other people, our company fails. Like that's not necessarily the case with every other company. If you're an ads platform, that's actually orthogonally the case, right? So I do want to be like, just to not like put myself up on a pedestal. I think that there's like a lot of nuance to this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And what you said about scaling is so true. Like you only know what you know. And as someone who works in the tech sector, some of the things that the mistakes we've made, we only discover because somebody points it out. And there really are just genuine mistakes that are made. And yeah, sometimes they can have an impact on even privacy. And it's not always some sort of nefarious thing. It can just be a matter of growing and learning and trying to build the best product you can. So next question for you. Let me see where I was. Okay. So I've read a lot of statistics about the power of video as an effective communication platform. And I saw a fact that you have on Loom's website that we remember 95% of a message when it's watched versus only 10% of what we read. Why is video so effective?
Yeah, I wish I had like a good answer here. I think that I think that I'm definitely not. I want to preface this by saying I'm not a psychology expert. Like I haven't taken a single psych class in my life. I do think that starting and scaling a company is a bit like condensed psychology class, like all in one as you deal with other humans. But if I had to guess, honestly, I think it's the connection, even to hearing someone speak that like that sort of more primal connection with the other person is I mean we've just had hundreds of thousands of years to speak to each other, and then it was only really within the last 10,000 years or so that we developed writing as a technology, because writing is a technology. And so it's actually kind of crazy if you think about it that way, that we over 100,000 years to develop our skills to read faces and to talk to people and hear their voice and understand what they mean and the tone in which they deliver a message. But only a very small sliver of that has been reading and writing. And yet most of the way that we communicate is reading and writing. And so like when you put it in that way, like regardless of the actual mechanism, I think it becomes obvious that our body or our brains have developed a way to over index on stories and things that are told to us over video in conversation versus over text. But even then, I will say that retention in general is difficult. It's like a really difficult skill, and humans on average aren't very good at it. So the visual component of being able to see what's being talked about, that sort of more presentation style, or, you know, if it is just like a camera recording, being able to pick up on the other person's facial expressions and the tone in which they're delivering something, that creates other markers in your head to be able to remember that message. And sometimes it's more effective to do it that way. Like right now, I'll give you examples that as I've scaled as a manager and become more of a seasoned manager, not just leader, the way I deliver feedback, like I pretty much exclusively do it over Loom now. Like I look at, I think the feedback is received better. It's not ambiguous as to the seriousness at which I'm delivering it. Able to say myself in a way that lets my team know that I'm delivering this feedback constructively and I'm in their corner. I think all of that is through text, and it's much more memorable and it's more effective to get it that way. And that's just like one of many examples in the realm of not actually just sharing your screen, but just sending a video versus text. I mean, when you're sharing your screen, you have the informational aspect that ties to what you're trying to say.
That makes sense. So one final question for you, and let's tie this back a little bit to the trust and safety component. So what do you see for the future as far as this technology continues to develop? What do you maybe foresee in your industry as far as trust and safety issues that might come up over time?
I mean, I think that ownership over data is a big one, especially if it's through a business context, like ownership of data. We're not there yet. Like it's not even clear that we are. And I think the other part that you brought up around like hyper transparency from a company out to its users publicly is another thing that's going to get pushed quite a bit. The other thing is that, and this is more in the realm of like in the future, I think that our technology and capability around video it's going to get really advanced, and it's going to happen really, really fast. And being able to trust that even the piece of content that you're watching was generated by the person and not automated, I think we're gonna face some issues there. And the industry, it's not just on Loom, like it disproportionately affects Loom, but I think the entire industry is going to have to think about that. So those would be the three main pillars that I see: ownership, transparency, and then trust in the content itself, that it was generated by the person who's actually sending it to you.
Ownership, transparency, and trust. Those are all very important things to think about.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you so much for being here, Vinay.
Thank you for having me on. This was cool. It was fun.
Thank you. And we will see you next time on The Brief.